Additional Chief Secretary, Planning and Development Commissioner, Government of Maharashtra. A round of applause for our session chair for the session on financial inclusion. I invite Mr. Ramesh Tenkil, Chief General Manager, NABARD. So we invite you on stage. A round of applause for a welcome for Mr. Tenkil, please. I invite Mr. U. Ramesh Kumar, General Manager, Canara Bank. Canara Bank is also SLBC in Kerala. I invite Ma'am Lalita Raman, Zonal Manager, South, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Ma'am, we invite you on stage. Chief Information Officer, Mahindra Finance. Sir, we invite you on stage, please. And with this, I hand over the session to Honorable Session Chair.
Good afternoon. This session was scheduled for 3:30 to 4:30, about 1 hour slot was there. What I will do, I'll try to give about 8 minutes to each one of them and some time for question answers. So maybe about 35 to 40 minutes we'll try to wind up. So we save about 20 minutes because we are running behind schedule. So let's start with Canara Bank. Mr. Ramesh Kumar, General Manager, Canara Bank.
Inclusion for last almost a decade, wherein we find that it's the last mile connectivity which is most important. So the need for financial inclusion, as you all know, is because there are a lot of areas in our country where the villagers, the customers, the rural people are not able to reach into the banks for their financial needs. So we have been making technological improvement in the banking sector as far as the common people within the urban and semi-urban areas are concerned. But the objective under financial inclusion is that to see that the same facilities that is available to the people in the urban and semi-urban areas get percolated down to the rural areas and to the interior areas. Now the question of the last mile connectivity comes. The problem is how to bridge it. We have different models where the traditional brick and mortar model is there, where we start opening branches, we use what is called as the USBs, and within there we have the connectivity with the direct branch and then we do it. Or a combination of such along with the BCs where the handheld machines or the POS machines are being used. In Kerala, there is an additional facility that we have been using because under the Kerala IT Mission, we have got the Akshaya centers in many of the places. And these work as the points for the customers, the touch points for the customers to do their transactions, and where the already available technology facility is being used. Now, many banks use different kinds of models in this where you either use the Magstripe cards or the smart cards. In Canara Bank, we have been using the partners, and along with them we have been using the facility of the smart cards. The RuPay cards are being used through which we use the intermediary called the business correspondents, and through them we make the payments. But still there are challenges because the challenges that we find is that even in spite of all the efforts that we have been taking in order to educate the people at the village level, there is a hesitancy for them to still use these electronic media. They would rather prefer to walk into the branches and do the details, transactions. Our ultimate objective is that traditionally these villagers have been depending upon the money lenders. And the money lenders are people who approach these people in their houses and start delivering the banking services in the way that they have been doing earlier, of course at a cost which is exorbitant for them. To replace this, we start doing this, but again, the challenges we feel is that One, these people in the villages are not able to still get acclimatized to the kind of technology that is being used. Second, there are operational aspects of challenges where when you have the biometrics, you have the problem of often getting not validated by these biometrics for reasons of operational problems. Third is many areas there is the problem of the connectivities. You have the offline transaction as well as the online transaction. Earlier we were depending upon the offline transactions. Now, under the revised scheme of the PMJDY, we require the banking accounts to sit on the CBS, and therefore we depend upon the online transactions. And for this, these models have been put into place. They are working in many places, and Kerala has been declared as a place where it has been 100% saturated, in the sense that all the households in this state have been able to open accounts with the banks and do the transactions. We wish to carry this forward by having the second accounts in each households, and then through the financial literacy centers, educate them to use the technology and make this program a success. We have been able to register a good amount of success in Kerala because the literacy levels are high and the awareness among the people are high. We have been able to use the NGOs also into this. To that extent it is high. But I don't think that the same amount of success can be seen in the states, in other states where these kinds of developments are not there. So I believe that still there is a big challenge in having the 100% enrollment and the last mile connectivity in most of the states. We are into the next phase, and within a short period we will be covering all those phases with all the banks. Different models are being used. We want to try to have a uniform approach so that all the banks can converge into a kind of a uniform method of doing it and ensure that the banking is very simple and efficient for the people at the rural areas. The government and the other agencies have been playing a very proactive role, and that is one of the reasons that why we have been able to cover it up in the very shortest time with the support of NABARD and Reserve Bank of India. I hope that we would like to develop this as a particular model, a very efficient model to be showcased to the other states in the country. Thank you.
We have to make sure that people are also ready to receive the services. Unless we equip them with all the facilities that they require, either to avail the services or to get the payments from government, we have to make sure that they have accounts, at least each very good account in a bank, and that is why financial inclusion has become that important. If you go by 2011 census, then I think about 7 crore families did not have the accounts. And every state is ranging between 10 to 25%, families not having the accounts. So Canara Bank, being the lead bank in Kerala, I'm sure they are going very fast and they'll be able to cover before the 26th of January, which is the target date.
We have already covered in Kerala.
You've already 100% covered.
We have declared it 2 days ago.
Okay, very good. Ms. Lalita Rajan, Zonal Manager South, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Thank you.
I belong to the leading private general insurer, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Before you to speak on the financial inclusion, the bank's financial inclusion is again hand in hand with insurance. Bajaj Allianz, as a company, we started dreaming of digitalized Bajaj Allianz from the day we started our operations in India. We are almost there. We have almost realized our dream, and we are looking for digitalized India dream. When I'm talking about financial inclusion, where do we come into play? Just like the rural masses could not get across to formal banking operations or lending services, credit services, they also did not have access to insurance requirements. They hardly had knowledge about where to buy insurance, how to protect the people, how to protect the property. So once the financial inclusion was introduced by the banks, we also followed suit by joining hands with our bank partners to make use of the business correspondents to sell micro insurance products in the rural and town areas. Why do we have to do this? Because 50% of the population of India, approximately, still remain uncovered either for life insurance or for accident insurance. And this being the majority, as a country going forward, we also had to look at providing accessibility to insurance. So we have got into digitalization. Business correspondents being used by our bank partners are also being used to sell personal accident insurance, home insurance, and we have now heard of Jammu and Kashmir natural calamities losses. All these things do happen in the rural and small towns, and so far, so long they were without any insurance support. Today, with the digitalization of policies, brochures, product knowledge, and the quotations to be given on the spot, we have been able to move a good mile towards reaching the masses to the final point. How did we do it is a point that you may ask. Yes, we have developed applications which can be used on a tab or on a mobile phone, and a quote can be raised by our people on the spot. Details can be fed in and policy can be converted there itself. This is a way long. If you look at the PSUs and the earlier two nationalization days when we were working before private companies came into picture, one had to walk into the insurance company to get his papers done. So, and there were hardly any companies which were opening branches in the rural areas excepting out of compulsion. So this method of using the applications on the tab and on the mobile phone has enabled the customer to either buy policies directly, thanks to the internet facility which our central government is also really pushing it forward in the rural areas, and even claim settlement. It is not only that policies are required, we also have to service the customers when the claims are occurring. That is also being done online by enabling our people with a tab usage with the required applications. Photographs of the damages are taken, uploaded to our head office, and there they are able to view it immediately and give approvals. Just to cite an example, in the J&K, Jammu and Kashmir losses which had taken place, our company, all the companies were quite fast in settling the claims. We had even moved much faster, and I would say that J&K being our banker partner, we almost had 10,000 claims coming to us. We were able to clear 50% of the claims in a matter of 3 weeks, just because of the digitalization and because we were able to get claims done online. All that I would like to say here is that we are moving towards digitalization, and another thing which we have done as an initiative which other companies are also following up, like ICICI Lombard and other companies, we are opening virtual offices across rural areas and towns. This is an initiative which has been started, and other companies are also following suit, where again the company employees will be on the spot, meeting the rural customer, meeting the small customer in the small towns, issuing policies, giving them service for claims, and also taking insurance agents there, releasing them commission on a much more frequent basis than on a monthly basis, because you can expect a smaller income on a thing, wages bearing. We also have introduced a product for the rural which is called microfinance product, which is again connected with the financial inclusion. This microfinance product enables an accidental cover for the small agriculturists or even laborers who are working in the field who meet with an accident. They get a compensation immediately of 25,000. They can also cover their spouses out of that. There is also an inbuilt cover in that. Out of an accident, if the person is hospitalized, he gets a hospital treatment. He also gets a loss of wages due to accident for a period of 5 days, which is normally about 120 rupees per day. So he gets about 5 days wages to compensate the loss which happens at that time. So we, in the insurance industry, are also moving forward along with our banks. Just like Canara Bank has moved very much forward, we also as private insurance companies, and of course even other companies are following up, we are moving towards reaching the masses at their homes, at their towns, and delivering insurance policy and insurance services. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to show where digitalization is taking us to in the field of insurance. Thanks you once again.
Thank you. To be tackled on a priority basis. Let's now request the Chief General Manager of NABARD, Mr. Ramesh Tenkil, to talk to you.
Platform on this session on financial inclusion, reaching to the last mile. Most of you, I don't see many people. I hope at least there are a few bankers around here. What has NABARD got to do with financial inclusion? I think plenty, because we hold two of the most important purse strings, two important funds, the Financial Inclusion Fund and the Financial Inclusion Technology Fund, which is managed by NABARD. So all those of you who are interested in IT-related last mile connectivity, you know where to go. There's not much to say as far as NABARD's initiative. I would rather be a little more focused on the Kerala initiatives. And for most of the old generation bankers, I'm sure financial inclusion is not that is something new. Although for the last few years we have been, these two words, financial inclusion, has been the buzzword. Ever since the nationalization of commercial banks had taken place, the policymakers had acknowledged that it is necessary and it is important financial inclusion to take place. Credit targeting approaches like priority sector norms, no-frill accounts, basic savings and basic deposits accounts, regulated microfinance, all the interventions had one underlying idea: to make the unbanked financially inclusive. The decades of attempt to reach the unbanked through these alternative approaches met the desired objectives only partially. Mid-course corrections, both in policy and in approaches, bear proof of this, but the intent has always been to reach the unreached. The Reserve Bank of India, the main player in the financial inclusion policy, had since the last decade placed greater emphasis on the outreach and expansion of branch network. The bank-led model approach to expand the outreach and financial literacy to empower the masses have been the guiding principles of this effort. To pursue financial inclusion as a commercial activity and not to view it as charity or service has been the hallmark of this approach, which makes it self-sustainable and commercially viable. This, I believe, would enable financial inclusive initiatives to scale up and cover more areas. The National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, or NABARD as it is more popularly known, had pioneered the strategy of self-help groups and the bank linkage program in pursuit of its mission for achieving equitable and sustainable growth. It had designed, developed and facilitated the SHG bank linkage program in India since 1992 with various partner agencies like banks, non-governmental organizations, government agencies, departments. These SHG bank linkage program and other microfinance initiatives of NABARD had contributed immensely to the financial inclusion process in India. Let us now focus on Kerala, where these efforts have borne fruits. The group-based approach has been accepted as a reliable model which can be confirmed by the ubiquitous presence of neighborhood groups and the dominance of Kudumbashree, a state government initiative in implementing various government-sponsored programs. Today, with around 5,800 commercial bank branches, 2,500 touch points of cooperative institutions, we can safely assume that this state is well balanced, well endowed as far as outreach is concerned. Banks have adopted innovative delivery models and alternative channels to achieve this benchmark. Thus, just as the convener of SLBC has stated, SLB had declared Kerala as 100% inclusive, 100% households who are having at least one bank account. I think the banks need to be congratulated here. While banking accounts could be the first and the foremost step of financial inclusion, it is certainly not the end-all of the process. It brings us closer to our ultimate goal, empowering the underprivileged to lead a more self-determined life and improve their livelihood. Again, from the supply side, it can offer various social benefits by appropriately targeting and transferring the benefits directly into their accounts. On the demand side, creation of awareness by means of financial literacy is the key to success. This would create a demand for various financial products like credit, savings, remittances, insurance, and finally contributory pensions. For financial accounts to improve to a level where benefits are generated beyond the account, a focus on the last mile becomes critical. Addressing real user needs by aligning product design, distribution, business models, and financial inclusion. Only a massive social mobilization involving painstaking and long-drawn campaigns that resist the temptation for target-driven, quick wins and band-aid solutions can bridge this last mile. In the context of Kerala, let me, one hastens to ponder, with such an outreach, what drove the people to approach, what drove the people in Kerala to approach the informal sector for their credit needs? What I'm talking about is the money lender. Was there a trust deficit? Was it due to ease of business with the informal sector? Or because of the inability of the poor households to afford to meet even the basic requirements of KYC for getting bank loans, such as obtaining a photograph or income certificate, or even to sacrifice a day's wage for completing the loan formalities? This, we believe, is a major hurdle in accessing credit from banks. The moneylender, therefore, appears to be a messiah to the poor as he is more approachable and, unlike banks, provides the services at the doorstep. It also goes on to prove that there is a market or a demand at the bottom of the pyramid. Having said that, let me hasten to add, I'm not talking about the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, which I believe sounds a little inappropriate in the context, but a reasonable amount of profit to make it sustainable. As a development banker, the situation prompts me to ask, what are the flaws in the design? Why do a customer or the bank fail to meet eye to eye? How do we attempt inclusion by providing access to reduce poverty and inequality? Well, information communication technology does provide tools to reach unreached through ATMs, mobile banks, kiosk banking, and the whole gamut of techno services. With a decade of experience in various technological innovations, we really need to take a closer look into the efficacy of these measures, especially to reach the unreached. While technology can provide connectivity, we need to examine how many are actually getting hooked onto it. It is in this context cooperative banks become relevant. The local nature of these banks and the consequent information advantages, the knowledge about the forthcoming business opportunity, as well as borrower quality information that national level banks have a hard time gathering, place the cooperatives at a very advantageous position. This also manifests in the flexible and customized service delivery these banks that can be more responsive to the needs of the local community. What then are the issues with governance? But there are issues in the governance of these rural financial institutions. The cooperatives in Kerala are quite different from their counterparts in India. They are robust and healthy. They have a network of around 2,400 branches that includes 1,600 primary agriculture societies. These primary agriculture cooperative societies, or PACs as they're known, have a membership base of about 1.35 crores, and as on March 2012, they boast a deposit of around rupees 40,000 crores and a credit outstanding of 46,000 crores. Most of these packs have adopted technology and almost all are computerized. This is unique to Kerala. Well, there are other issues, but I think for the paucity of time, let me just mention, yesterday we had a national conclave of microfinance in NABARD, where Dr. Raghuraman Rajan, the governor of Reserve Bank, was invited as a special guest. And he had made a few important points. In his keynote address at the National Microfinance Conclave at NABARD, the governor stated that the 4 A's, accounts, Aadhaar, access to finance and activity in the account, and the 5 P's, products, place, price of the product, protection of consumers, and profit to the lenders, can create a vibrant financial market for the poor. Let me, in conclusion, stress on a very fundamental point. All these initiatives ought to be strongly backed by political will. The RBI governor rightly voices his concern on misplaced subsidies, creating price distortions in the economy, and the adverse impact on banks by the populist policy of loan waivers adopted by various governments at different points of time. His advice to the policy makers was to transfer such benefits or subsidies directly to the beneficiaries' accounts without distorting the market or the good credit ecosystem painstakingly created by the banks. I believe that political will, political support, policy support, and the spirited backing of the stakeholders would definitely make our dream of achieving inclusive growth come true. With due apologies to Robert Frost and the context of the title of this session, let me finally conclude by distorting his poem. The task is complex, arduous and steep, but we have promises to keep and miles to go before we reach. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Chenkil. Financial inclusion is reached to the families in the remotest areas. NABARD, with its expertise in the agriculture development and rural development, is perhaps the only source for relatively cheaper finance in the agricultural sector, investment sector, agriculture investment. Therefore, what he has mentioned and he has explained about the activities of NABARD in Kerala, and that applies to almost all the states, we can be sure that the benefits of financial inclusion will flow to all the families in the state and in the country. Let's request Mr. Gururaj Rao, Chief Information Officer of Mahindra Finance, to have a word with you. This is a
services in the rural and semi-urban markets. We have currently a customer base of about 3 million customers in 150,000 villages, which we service through 1,000-odd branches across all the states and union territories of this vast country. We would be covering more than 90% of the districts. So that's our presence, that's our track record with regard to reaching out to the rural and semi-urban customer segments. In terms of the customer segment that we talk of, the rural and semi-urban markets are slightly different as compared to the urban areas. We all know the infrastructural issues. In spite of the tremendous progress made in the last few years, there is power shortage, severe power shortage. In fact, in some of the regions, there is still telecom connectivity to be done in many locations. There's still road connectivity is not very great. And I mention all this because in our customer segment, the rural and semi-urban markets, there is a lot of physical activity. The customer would like to meet the organization face to face, either at his doorstep or at our doorstep or anywhere in between. But he would like to see a face rather than go online or call up a faceless call center. So that's the nature of the business, nature of the challenge. So how do we handle this when we are talking about reaching out to this last mile? You know, all the ICT solutions that we devise, that we have done, take care of these challenges and try to overcome them and become a differentiator by themselves. So the solutions are designed right from the grassroots level. We don't start with something which is off the shelf and then try to force fit it into a situation. So we do take care of, for example, you know, in our customer segment, the customers themselves earn revenues in cash. And when we lend them the money and would like to get the repayments, they would like to use the same cash for EMIs. So we have to ensure that we collect this cash at his doorstep or wherever he is available. Now, in a month, we collect more than 1,000 crores in cash across the country. We do this through more than 5,000 field executives, we call them collection executives, and they have the handheld terminals. Now, quite often, yes, there are no telecom signals. Then these terminals have to work offline also. Then what about the power shortage? You know, sometimes the batteries don't get charged adequately. So we do have redundant batteries available for them. And yet, if there is still no power supply, we also have solar chargers for those devices. So you have to devise solutions for these problems. You can't, you know, I mean, you can't expect a mainstream solution to handle these kind of problems. The you know, the challenge with regard to these kind of cash collections does not just limit itself to the you know, on the field activity. You also have to do a immediate reconciliation of this cash. So you do have systems at the back end which take care of reconciliation across these 5,000 devices on a daily basis, so that you don't have you know, leakages or minimize the leakages in such a situation. The other aspect of using the same devices for multiple purposes also comes into play, because we do have other subsidiaries which do pure play rural housing schemes, where we lend money which are even less than ₹1,00,000, and hence the EMI might not be more than 2,000-3,000. So the same solutions are used to collect for loans which could be 20 lakhs, for loans which could be ₹1,00,000, and also collect insurance premium for the insurance that we sell. So for the record, we collect over 850 crores of insurance premium in a year. So all these collections happen on the same technology platforms. When we talk of technology and when we talk of financial inclusion, we need to realize that, see, in the urban segment, the customers are highly geographically dense. The you know, the value of each transaction is high, and the frequency of transactions is also high. Whereas it's exactly the opposite in the case of rural and semi-urban markets, and hence the overheads per transaction tend to be very high. And hence it's imperative that you try to minimize the technology costs as much as possible. And in this situation, we have been very successful in using open source solutions. In fact, one of our partners has got a stall out there, so I wouldn't want to make a pitch for him, but he will make it for himself. We do have open source solutions for productivity, for emailing, for authentication, I mean, n number of reasons. And even the handheld devices are on open source. So it reduces the cost. You know, you don't get into a per user kind of a cost or per transaction kind of a cost. You have a flat fee which you can leverage upon very regularly. So that's a very important factor when you are trying to create something for these segments. One more important characteristic of these markets is that they would love to interact with you in the local language. You know, I mean, you can't just send out a letter in English and expect him to read it or even, you know, I mean, open it. So we, in our effort to reach out to the customers, have started sending out letters in about 13 languages currently. We also provide IVR solutions in 13 languages. We give him automated voice messages in those languages, and hence you come closer to the customer. And one of the objectives of having 1,000-odd branches and thousands of employees in those branches is to interact with the customer in his, you know, in the way he would like to. So our employees also have this deficiency of not being able to understand adequate English. So we send even internal communication in multiple languages. So these are all the financial inclusion measures you need to take, you know, to be successful. Yeah, and while we talk about lack of technology awareness of these customers, we have not at Mahindra Finance forgotten that we need to take them along onto the next level. So, while it takes a lot of effort, lot of encouragement on our part to help the customers do that, but we do also help them with online payments, with statements available on customer portals and intermediary portals, etc. So, we try to do both the things, but yes, we first give the markets what they need in the way they would like to have, and then try to take them along onto the next stage. That's all I wanted to share here. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. This is a very people with products, ready products to be given to the citizens. The skewed distribution of fruits of development is a reason for worry in this country. The adverse impact of skewed distribution of fruits of development is the cause of unrest in the country. And therefore, financial inclusion is assuming great importance. We must make sure that all the families are ready with the infrastructure of banking, and they also receive the products as per their choice. Now, can I open it for the questions?
He mentioned about loan waiver scheme in a slightly loan waiver schemes that it adds to the financial burden. That's what I believe. But what about the NPA, which is lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees in this country, only to the public sector banks, leave the private sector banks. Private sector banks knows how to get it out. But, and mostly those loans are being settled, one-time settlement, or maybe, so it takes a lot of time. You also know it very well. So how do you deal these two situations differently? And I have one question from Mahindra Finance also. First, this.
Actually, when I was actually echoing the words of Dr. Raghuram yesterday when he had come down to. I share your sentiments. Basically, you are trying to compare the various outstanding loans in.
I'm mentioning agriculture loan waivers, which was done by APO government. It's not that I'm supporting that.
Sorry.
Agriculture loan waiver, which was done by UPA government in 2008. But I'm not a supporter of this, don't misunderstand me, but I'm comparing these two with this NPA of different industries on different public sector banks, including NABARD, I believe.
Yeah, these are basically policy matters. When we are talking about agricultural loan, you have another sort of thinkers who basically refer to you like saying that the NPAs in other industries. I mean, I generally agree with you, but what happens, what Mr. Raghuram was also saying is that when these sort of waivers take place, the benefits really do not accrue to the farmers. So he is trying to say is that if there's a subsidy or a subvention that a government wants to do or that there's a policy, it should go directly to their accounts instead of waiving it. So he is basically talking about price distortions whenever there is this sort of price waivers. But of course, that's a bigger issue when you say there are NPAs in other activities as well.
I have one question for Mahindra Finance, which gentleman was mentioning, that non-banking finance is very new things which has been coming up. But most of the time, it happens that general people land into trouble, whether it is when you want a loan, home loan, you get immediately a call and then the person is there, compared to government sector banks or government sector agriculture loans. So how do you deal, because generally after that the interest rate goes up, public are harassed. And you have seen most of the Ponzi schemes also landing themselves, a lot of people in trouble. So how do you get the security for the people?
Fortunately, I mean, we in Mahindra Finance do not have agriculture loans or directly related to agriculture. But at the same time, agree with your point that in these markets, it is not that the borrower gets a monthly salary in his account and then you take it from his EMI, take it through an ECS or RTGS, etc. So that's true. But that's part of our business model. I mean, by definition, we are non-banking finance company. So we target and we service those customers who are less served or not served by the banks. So this is part of our DNA to understand the customer and to lend him towards what is possible to be lent. I mean, it certainly is not going to be the same as a bank. That's true by definition. But at the same time, there are methods, there are ways of doing things. I mean, we can't simply, as I said, go on a particular date of the month and ask him to repay his EMI. That's not the way we work. And that's the reason we have the solutions, we have the people who are on the field to do the collection job, to go and talk to him as and when he gets the money, so collect it at his doorstep or wherever it is convenient. And, it doesn't work the way we would do it in a standard manner. If you don't do it a deposit, then it's gone, etc. It doesn't work that way. So it's clear that we have to work as per the vagaries of his income levels. That's true. And I mean, that's nature of the job.
I'll try to answer your question related to NPAs, whether in the agricultural sector or in the industry sector. Why does you look at it? Why does the NPA become big? It has a cascading effect. For example, I'll give you an example of Maharashtra. In Maharashtra, we have a system of rewarding that farmer in case he pays in time. So if the entire loan is at a rate of, let's say, 9%, 9.5%, if he pays in time as per the schedule, then we bear some portion of the interest and we pay it to NABARD. And therefore, the farmer has to pay only 3% or 1%. If you have this incentive system of rewarding a disciplined loan taker, a person who has received loan and he is disciplined, if you reward him, then it has a cascading effect in the society. And everybody then would like to be disciplined so as to receive loans at a lower rate. Similarly, for industries also, we can introduce a system in which we reward people who have respect for financial discipline. Now we have instruments like CIBIL. The other day I was asking the NPCI chairman that you have, let's say you have the home loan system. Home loan normally will be available at 10.5, 10.75%. But suppose I am a very disciplined man, I do pay up my credit card bills in time, I pay up my loan in time, and I have a very good CIBIL report, or CIBIL score is very good. Am I not entitled to some sort of concession? This has to be decided at a policy level by the RBI, by the bank, and by the Government of India. If you introduce incentive system, then NPAs are bound to become less.
Okay. So, as we are running out of time, I request session chair so that if we can close the session here. And thanks for such a fruitful discussion on financial inclusion. And at the land where under PMJDY 100% rollout of PMJDY has done, and recently Government of Kerala has announced it. So, and NABARD is also funding a lot of schemes, a lot of projects for financial inclusion in the state of Kerala. So, thank you to all the panelists and the session chair. I request Mr. K.P. Bakshi, Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Maharashtra, to kindly present mementos to our esteemed guests today. We start with Mr. Mr. U. Ramesh Kumar, General Manager, Canara Bank. Canara Bank is also SLBC here in Kerala, and we thank Canara Bank for a huge support from their side in, for creating E-India. And then Ma'am Lalita Raman, Zonal Manager, South, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. And last but not the least, Mr. Gururaj Rao, Chief Information Officer, Mahindra Finance. I'll request Mr. U. Ramesh Kumar to please present a memento to our session chair, Mr. K.P. Bakshi. A round of applause for our speakers, please. And can you please have a group photo? And after this, we will continue with our next session, which is on emerging innovations in e-governance. As you know that various emerging technologies are being used nowadays, not only if you talk about social media, mobility, analytics, big data. Everything is now